Hi, and welcome, welcome back to Play It Loud. I've recently been taken to task for championing some Audiofile LPs that I would allege sound better than other pressings. And the person who's challenged this suggested that we're being taken for a ride, and that actually you can get exactly the same on perhaps a CD or a standard LP. Bound to disagree, or I wouldn't be doing this, but I'd like to address this by going through a few issues which I think are relevant to this. It's also been noted that some original pressing LPs, some albums that when they were first put out sound as good or better than an audiophile LP. So let's go into why that might be the case. And before we go into specifics, we have to talk about remastering and remixing, because the two are completely different. Let's talk for a minute about remastering. There are some famous remasterers out there, particularly in the LP world, but they do CDs as well. Bernie Grumman's a perfect example. I don't know how he gets any sleep, the amount of albums that he allegedly remasters. So what is remastering? Remastering is where an engineer can take a usually tape copy and can adjust the frequency range of that tape copy before it's laid into a stamper to make LPs or goes to a digital copy. In short, they can raise the bass or lower the bass, do the same with the treble, maybe bring the mid, which is the vocals, forward. They cannot change what's on the tape, but they can adjust the frequency response. Okay, why would they want to do this? Well, if you go back to the 60s, in those days, record players weren't very good. And there's, I think, a famous example. One of the Beatles' early albums was mastered with too much bass. And the first copies that went out were frequently returned to the shops by customers who complained that the album was faulty. The album wasn't faulty, their equipment was. And because there was too much bass, the needle jumped. A lot of albums in the 60s and early 70s were mastered with relatively low bass because of this, until equipment improved. So old albums, old Beatles albums, tend to have relatively low in volume, bass, and even in frequency range. Giles Martin's addressed that, but we'll move on to that. Okay, so we now need to talk about remixing. The people who remix, I've just mentioned Giles Martin, Stephen Wilson's another. He's been remixing Yes, King Crimson, Jethro Tull, umpteen others. Martin's most famous for remixing his father's job that he did on Beatles LPs, particularly some of the later ones. When you remix an album, you have the authority to go to the original tapes, and not just to equalize them, but to take each individual track and bring it forward in the mix, take it back in the mix. You could slide it around in the sound field. You can bring the drums up, you can change the vocals, you can make the background vocals louder, or you can literally remix it to a standard that you think is better, certainly different from how it was originally put out. Giles Martin, I think, has done an excellent job with some of the Beatles albums, and he admits that all he has tried to do is to go from an extreme left instruments, right vocals, to bring it into a more central mix without changing the volumes. Okay, good news or bad news, you may not agree with me. This is about the difference between remixing and remastering. Okay, having done that, why would we want a remastered album? Let's go back to the Beatles again. When the Beatles recorded Rubber Soul, for instance, they recorded it, George Martin taped it, a copy of that tape, a master tape, was sent to probably EMI in Hayes in Middlesex, no longer there, and they took that tape and they made a stamper to make the albums. Now, all tape degrades. Any of you who can remember cassettes will remember that those cassettes that you brought, or those cassettes that you made, over a period of time deteriorated. The sound quality, when that tape kept going past a tape head, it lost some quality. The more times you do it, the more generations there are, the lower the quality. Okay, so George Martin's original tape, master tape, probably got copied, and the master tape was put into a cellar, a dungeon, somewhere where they could keep it. One would hope so. So the second copy went to EMI. But EMI probably made copies themselves, because they would have distributed to the people that they dealt with. The Americans in Colombia, Sony now, they would have sent them to Australia, they'd have sent them to Europe. When those now second or third generation copies arrived, they would almost certainly have been recopied so that those countries could keep their version of their master, which is now already 3, maybe 4 generations old. And they would have used the next copy to make more albums. And inevitably, that tape will have degenerated over a period of time, depending on how many copies they've got to make. And popular groups, they made a lot. Stones, Beatles, there were millions of copies of these albums sold at the time. And every time they had to make another copy. And every time they made another copy, the generation they were working from would have deteriorated. So move on 50 years, certainly 50 years for some of the lesser known groups from the 60s, and you could be, if you're buying a CD, you could be buying a CD which has been made from a 10th, 12th generation copy tape, possibly even more. I think some of the albums that I've heard sound as if they've been made from a 40th generation copy. So let's come back. That is one of the reasons why audiophile albums are produced, because almost without exception, the people who make them will tell you that they go to the original master tape. They take a very, very good copy before they make the pressings for their albums. Does this mean that they're better than an original copy? No. No, they may have been remastered with more bass, they may have better dynamics, but it's not a given, it's not absolutely certain, it depends who you're talking about. What they can say is that they will be better than perhaps a copy you might buy off of the shelf today of something that is on the 10th, 12th, 15th master tape, something that's bluntly old and degenerated. So we come back, the original copy. You can get, I've got an original copy of Simon and Garfunkel's Bookends on CBS Yellow Label. Sounds fantastic, and it's easy to get, and it's cheap because they sold millions of them, and they weren't played that much. They weren't like Beatles or Stones albums or albums that went to parties. So most of them are in pretty good condition, and they sound really, really good. But if you want to go back and get an early version of a Beatles album that's in very good condition, it's going to cost a lot more than an audiophile version. Not that there are audiophile Beatles albums, but it applies across the board. They're going to cost an awful lot of money. They're in demand, they're expensive. There aren't that many 50-year-old albums that are in really good condition. So you have to pay your money and take your choice. Original pressings, fantastic. Get a good quality one, really good, and you might not have to pay an awful lot of money for it. But if you want the best quality, certainly on an LP, you want that quality to have come from a very high quality master tape. The only way you're going to get that at the moment is to go for an audiophile pressing. So let's look now at audiophile pressings, what you get, how much they cost, and you decide whether they might be worth it. I've got a couple of examples here. We'll start with perhaps the cheapest. You can see I've got here a Willie Nelson album. this is just an example. This Willie Nelson album came to me from a company called VMP from America. Sadly, they've gone out of business, but I believe they might be coming back into business. What you've got is a very nice cover, quality, put together well. You've got a lovely album inside. I'm not going to take it out. It's 180 grams and it's a very good sound, and it comes with a slip inside telling you a little bit about the artist. They went out of their way to say that they were doing very good pressings. They were sourcing high quality analog productions, and they put out quite a lot of albums. This album cost, as I recall, something like £33, and that was including postage from America. So there are, and there still are, a few companies that will produce excellent albums at relatively little cost. Okay, we'll move on to Audiophile proper, for want of a better way of putting it. The Doors, LA Woman. This particular album comes from Analog Productions. It's not an album, it's effectively a double album. It's two 45 rev albums of the original, and they will claim that mastered by Bernie Grundman from original master tapes. It goes through, there's the man who owns the company, listens to everything before it goes out and has to tick it off. And he does his own videos, swears blind that there are occasions when he sent albums back 7, 8, 9, 10 times because he's not happy with the mastering. And I say again, mastering, not remixing, until he gets exactly what he thinks is the best. I can't argue with that. This is, in my opinion, the best version of LA Woman. Got a few. Okay, cost, I think about £70, roughly, when I brought it. Might be a bit more now. Okay, let's move on to something a little bit more, for a better way of putting it. Not going to go into detail on this because I've featured it before. And this is a MoFi, Mobile Fidelity, original master recording. And they will say that this came from an original analog tape, albeit they then dropped this to DSD, and in fact they put it through a digital step before a one-step pressing. In short, they go out of their way to make sure that what was on the tape reaches the grooves of this album with the minimal amount of steps in between. Lovely covers, and inside, I can never get to it, lovely albums, 180 degrees, perfect pressings, really good quality. And it's a lovely box, really is a very nice box. Better put the album back the right way or I'm never going to get it out again. Okay, so cost, I think that was something a little bit over £100. Please don't quote me. I think it was around that sort of price. And MoFi albums go from roughly £70 for a 33 revs per minute single album, up to around £160 for some of their one-step boxes. Might even be more of that now. Okay, and then Miles Davis, UHRQ Analog Productions again. Now this is a luxury item. No point in making it anything else. You can go and get Miles Davis Kind of Blue. You can probably get the CD for around £6, £7, £8. LP, I've seen them as little as $19.99. There are literally hundreds, possibly thousands of pressings of Kind of Blue. So why would you pay £160 to £190 for one of these? Well, first of all, you got a lovely box, and before you stop laughing, yes, £190 worth of box. No, I've already said this is a luxury item. So take it out of the box and you get a beautiful facsimile cover. I'm not going to take it all out. You get LP, there's a double LP version, pressed on 180 grams, virgin vinyl, I don't know what they call it, and guaranteed from the original analog tape. This has got, for those of us who've still got ears, this has got tape hiss on it because the recording was made that long ago that they didn't use Dolby, and they didn't, well, never mind. It's as close as you're ever going to get to the original recording, and that's why you buy it. Is it worth it? Hey, it's your money. In this case, it was my money. It's your decision. I think probably the answer to that is no. Glad I've got it. I've got 3 similar albums. The other 2 are Steely Dan albums. I'm really pleased I've got them. They sound fabulous. They're lovely boxes. They're luxury items. No, in the real world, they're very good recordings. If you can get a very good recording of those albums, you'll enjoy it. You'll enjoy it a lot, and you'll probably save yourself an awful lot of money. So that's a little bit about why I like audiophile albums. They vary from reasonably priced excellent albums to damned expensive but usually also excellent albums. I'm going to finish like everything else in life, this particular section, with a little bit about SACDs, super audio CDs. You need a particular player, an SAD player, in order to enjoy them, although most SACDs do have a second layer and are playable on a standard CD. I am reliably informed that the standard version, CD version 1644, on SACD players can sound different, read better or worse, than the standard CD. I've got to be honest, I've never tried, but apparently because there's some remastering involved, they can sound different. Okay, so where are we on SACDs? I'm going to start with this. This is, as you can see, Dark Side of the Moon. I've had this, I haven't checked, at least 10 years. I've had it a long time. This, in my opinion, is the best sounding Dark Side of the Moon that I have ever heard. And we're talking 2-channel stereo here. We're not talking surround sound. It sounds fabulous. Now, I will admit that I'm not a great fan of the latest remastering of Pink Floyd albums. I've brought a couple and I've been disappointed. Not for me, but it's a matter of taste. There is a new version of this out. It's from the new remastering. It may be very good. I haven't heard it. SACDs, roughly twice the price of an ordinary CD. Roughly. Depends where you are. Okay, moving on. SACD, this is Mobile Fidelity original master recording. I'm not going to go into it in detail. You can see it's Joni Mitchell's Court and Spark. The Joni Mitchell SACDs sound wonderful. I'm a great fan of Joni Mitchell, as I think everyone knows. It sounds different to the CD. I've got I think a standard CD version, albeit a very good pressing, and it sounds very good as well. This sounds different, but also very good. Again, I don't know how. Came off of the same tapes, you'd have thought, but no. Whatever. Okay, 2 more, and that's all, because this is an odd subject. I brought this out as an example. It's Cooper Bloomfield Stills Super Session, and this is a Japanese SACD, and this is a bit different. So let's open it up and show you. I brought this online from Japan. Can't read the cover. It's in Japanese. It comes with an obi stick. Very nice too. Then you have, this is a very, very high quality cover, reproduction of the original LP cover. Open it up and you have a book. Well, excuse me, a short book. But you have some details, really useful, in Japanese. To be fair, they're is an English translation. The album, the CD. Now, isn't that lovely? That is the CD. Yes, it comes off of this rubber backing, making it look exactly like a vinyl 45. It's very clever. It's quite expensive. You can get Japanese CDs online from Japan. I've never had a problem. I think CD Japan is the company, but you've got to expect to pay for them. And here's one you might want to pay for. This is not quite an SACD. I'm going to put my glasses on because I can never remember the exact. This is an SHM CD. I think what that means is that it's an SACD that's been pressed on a particular version of, must be plastic, mustn't it? That they say gives an even better reproduction because the Laserdisc can pick it up a lot better, and therefore it sounds better. Now, I'm not going to go into the technicalities. I don't know it, and I'm not going to open this because it's quite hefty. What I will say, this is the best sounding Passmasters that I have, and I've got a copy on the shelf up there from the mono box, and I've got a copy up there from the original Beatles box set vinyl, and I've got a copy over there from the CDs that were released in this country. So I've got a few to compare it to. This is brilliant. Don't rush out thinking you can get the whole of the Beatles catalogue from Japan in that quality. You can't. I don't think there are many SHM CDs of Beatles. I might be wrong, but that mono Passmasters is truly superb. That's my lot on SACDs for the moment. I think they're very good value, roughly twice the price for most of them than a CD. Yes, they do sound better than the CD if you've got an SACD player. Go for it, and when you've gone for it, play it loud.